Someone asked earlier what happened to the little girl with the monster, right? And what I would like to do is talk about what you can do if you're in a place of helping children deal with these things that adults don't believe in. That's the difficulty. And I don't know how much trouble you will get into doing this. That's something to do with your law of attraction. But my feeling is that it's always wise to tell children the truth. Because when you tell children the truth, you give them the power to actually deal with the issue in a much more harmonious and loving way, and also oftentimes give them the power to get back into a state where they're not afraid anymore. And so it's really good to tell them the truth. So what I would do in the case of a child who's seeing monsters all the time and getting quite frightened is I would sit in the room where they're seeing the monsters, and I would actually talk to them about the monster they're seeing, and then trust my own emotions about what the condition this person in the spirit world is. And so what you could say to the child is, actually, you know how they're portraying themselves with horns and evil face and all that? They're only doing that to scare you. They're just putting on a mask, actually. And you can actually see through the mask if you want. A child is able and capable of actually, if they're able to see the spirit and to feel what the spirit looks like, they're also capable of seeing the spirit's true condition and what the spirit really looks like. Does that make sense? The only reason why the fear projection is the one that enters the child is because the child has fear within itself. So if you start explaining to the child things like, actually it's just a person who's died, who's passed over into the spirit world, and all that person wants to do is have fun, you know, making children feel scared, you know. So all you need to do is just see them for what they really are. They can't actually hurt you. They can't actually hurt you in any way unless you're afraid of them, right? And then they can manipulate you through your fear. So if you start talking to the child about what they really see behind the mask of the spirit they're seeing. So when they see a spirit with a terrible evil face and all this stuff that the spirit will put on and project to the child, that you can encourage the child to feel their emotion about what is behind the mask. So just what you do is take your child even through a visualization, if you want, of imagine now you're taking their mask off of them. What do you see behind the mask? Do they look like a man or are they a woman? You know? And can you see them? Do they look happy or do they look sad? Or do they look angry? What do they look like? You know, just use basic childlike terms to describe the emotions. And do you realise there's nothing they can do to hurt you, particularly if you just ask God to protect you from them? So let's now try to do that right now. Can you see the person? Are they here now? Let's ask God to protect you from them. Let's look at what happens now. What happened? Did he step back or did he come to you? You know, and take them through this entire process. Now, many of your parents can't see what they're seeing, but you need to trust what they're describing to you and allow yourself to feel your emotions about it, and then allow the child, take the child through the process of truth with the interaction. Now, if you do this every single time they see a monster, within a very, very short period of time, they will have zero fear about what they're seeing. Right?
I also tell children about the fact that they have a guardian and that they can have guides as well that can help them on their life's journey. If they have a problem, they can ask for help, they can pray, but also that if they're already obviously highly mediumistic, if they're seeing monsters, that they can use that ability to actually assist them. If they're stressed or worried, they can talk to mum and dad, or they have these guardians and guides that are there to help them.
And the issue that many people face now is more and more and more children are seeing spirits more and more, right? Because of as the general condition of people on the planet improves, even just slightly, what happens is that then opens up the mediumistic channels in the children that are born after that generation. And then as they improve, so the next generation will be even more open. And eventually the children will be just like sitting here, seeing all the spirits like they're seeing you. And they'll even finish up going up and talking to those spirits that you can't see, just like they're talking to you, and they'll be able to describe what clothes they're wearing, what personality they have, all other things like that, just like you will be able to do if you keep allowing yourself to deal with your fears and your other emotions about spirits. So I would never discourage a child and cause the child to actually turn off their ability. The ability is a really good ability that God's given us. Actually, it's one of the primary abilities that God's given us in order to show us that there's life after death. You see, what is one of the most primary fears, the most primal fears we have? Isn't it dying? Right? Now, if you can see all the people that have ever died and you can relate to them just like you can relate to them when they have a flesh body, would you be afraid of dying anymore? Can you see how just that one thing is going to undo a lot of the fear that we have within us that causes us to act out of that fear? You look at how much of our fear of dying dominates our life's choices. Right? It's a huge emotion for the majority of us to deal with. And just this one thing that a child can see as spirit can help undo an entire belief, the entire belief that after you die there's nothing. Right? So God has given us these gifts in order to teach us truths, but the problem is that most of the time is we don't accept these truths and we close down the gifts, and in the end we come up with a belief that when you're dead, you're dead, and then there's all this fear that arises because of death, and now we finish up, if someone comes to us to shoot us, we now are afraid because we think when we're dead, you're dead, and there's no life after death, and so what are we tempted to do then? We're tempted to shoot him back, or shoot him rather than back. That wouldn't make much sense. We shoot him before he shoots me, right? And that way I can prevent my fear of death, right? But if we started trusting these interactions children have with all of these things, and allow them to do the same, this next generation and the generation after are going to have no fear of death at all. Which means they'll also feel the whole pointlessness of shooting somebody, right, or harming somebody in such a way. And they'll help our generation work through lots of our fears about passing away as well.